So much conflict, so much death. Where does one go when the cataclysm approaches and Ragnarok begins? When the clarion trumpets come calling and beckon thee home. Death is not the end. Age of Sigmar is not the end. So let me be the first to welcome thee to the Blood Gods domain, a gladiatorial arena where the greatest champions from this life and the next kill, maim, and burn for eternal glory. Subcommanders has returned, and we got a spicy one today. The four pillars of the ruinous pantheon, the greater demons of Khorne, Tzeentch, Slaanesh, and Nurgle, facing down the last alliance of elves and men. Quite the spectacle on the way as the great game begins in earnest once more. Old rivalries tossed aside, new covenants forged, and 8,000 troops battle under the gaze of the Soul Hunter. Tried to make it 8,888, but Forces of Order didn't want to give Khorne that much power. Quick reminder, because it's been a while, SUBCOMMANDERS 4V4 means each player controls a specific archetype of troops, whether that be ranged, infantry, cavalry, or monsters, and they must work alongside their teammates to behave as a cohesive army whole, which means communication, positioning, and micromanagement are key to victory. Over the years, we played a little bit more loose with the rules based on past experience, so every faction will bring 3 to 5 chaff infantry as well, just so there are bodies on the field and things to kill, and as always, rule of cool prevails. It's hard to get much cooler than the hunting grounds in Khorne's domain. Definitely my favorite map visually in Warhammer 3, alongside the free-for-all map at Sandbijin, and frankly, this should probably be a free-for-all map as well. It's kind of perfect for it. Nurgle will be controlling the monsters, so they've got a toad dragon, bile trolls, plague toads, and all manner of sickly beasts, while Slaanesh will control the cavalry with a horde of seekers, heart seekers, demonette cavalry in general, some marauder jav cav as well. Tzeentch controlling the ranged component. They've got blue horrors, pink horrors, changebringers, and all kinds of flamer beasties. And then we've got the infantry of Khorne, the blood god, wrathmongers, and the fairly irate and signature crimson hue of an army bathed in blood. Kugat Plaguefather, Nakari, Scarbrand, and Kairos Fateweaver leading their respective gods to war, but they aren't the only avatars on the field. Tyrion, the avatar of Cain, King Luin Leoncoeur, Miao Ying, the Storm Dragon, and Orion, King in the Woods and avatar of Karnus, will lead the High Elves, Bretonians, Cathayans, and Wood Elves into the realms of chaos. Cathay controls the infantry, Wood Elves the ranged firepower, High Elves the monsters, and Bretonia the cavalry. Go figure. Forces of Order definitely showed up to play. We've got a mean air force with the Sun and Star Dragon, backed up by the Omen of Azurian Arcane Phoenix. Chaos has flyers too, but it's all skirmishers and Kairos, who most surely cannot handle the flames, teeth, and claws of ancient Caledonian creatures. That advantage is probably going to be further amplified by the fact that Royal Hippogriff Knights are on the field as well. One of the strongest units in the game right now across all modes, campaign and multiplayer. Such fearsome, such chivalrous. Wow. It's not the best cavalry map, honestly. Anything reliant on charge doesn't really want to wade down into that blood fountain, because their momentum will probably be halted by all the staircases and pathfinding to get down into the pit. And so, from a pure infantry grind perspective, Chaos should have the advantage here, especially with Scarbrand and Wrathmongers in the Vanguard. But if you've seen those Subcommanders games before, particularly when it comes to ranged play, giving Wood Elves, Skaven, or Vampire Coast access to the ranged archetype can be very dangerous, because their units hit really hard and are incredible for focus firing down high-value targets quickly when they have 3 teammates to protect them and they can mass a bunch of AP missile troops, right? So Kugath and the Soul Grinder actually have a super important job here in the opening stages. They have to thin those numbers off the Deepwood Scouts, the Glade Guard, and maybe the Way Watchers, definitely the handful of Iron Hail Gunners Cathay brought, because if a bunch of those don't die early, then monsters like Scarbrand and the Toad Dragon simply cannot go into melee at all without melting like the Wicked Witch of the West. So, Soul Grinder opening up with that Phlegm Bombardment Cannon, Kugath tossing Nurglings across the beaten zone, and they're going to be blowing up range troops for the opening stages of this fight. Really important that a lot of those troops die. If they don't, I think Chaos is going to be in trouble. Funnily enough, in that what are the best units for each faction video, we talked about Cathay and the Janku War Drum. That thing is going to be just pooping out value this game, because that Fury of the Falling Star, that weapon damage buff and the immune to psych and all its other little global goodies, those will be buffing pretty much the entire Order army. Basically the perfect centerpiece here, and unlike in a 1v1, where you might have the time to focus it down, there's essentially a 0% chance of that happening in a 4v4, as Glade Guard are getting taken to Pound Town by that Phlegm Bombardment Cannon. There's way too many other important targets to kill first. No one's going to be focus firing down the Zhangu War Drum, even if they could. So Nurgle has to whittle down the box by killing ranged troops. Slaanesh has to ultimately break it. They're going to try to do so with the Demonette Cavalry moving out to the flanks and rear as King Luin Leon Kerr looks on and perhaps tries to get a little bit aggressive early, charge into some of these cultists or some of the chaff infantry in the center and slow down the advance to give, you know, the Glade Guard and these ranged troops a little bit more time to fire. But Nurgle does have the range advantage right now because the Forces of Order have 0 artillery. Bretonia, or rather the Empire and the Dwarfs, are not on this battlefield, so they're not going to be having any cannons or anything to outrange that Soul Grinder. And yeah, you can see the Glade Guard are really taking quite a bit of damage already. Some of the Iron Hail Gunners have already broken off, and Kugat and the Soul Grinder of Nurgle are really putting in some serious work at the moment as the Forces of Order have to blob up a little bit, moving into those small choke points to get into the Blood Fountain. Khorne will join them there momentarily, and it'll be Wrathmongers and Cultists charging into the fray in the foreground. Maybe some Halberds in the Exiled one to ensure that nothing charges frontally up the center. But yeah, Slaanesh is looking to overwhelm the flank here. Cavalry fight against Bretonia for them should be very interesting. Traditionally, I would say Seekers and Heartseekers would have a very difficult time dealing with Grail Knights or Grail Guardians in a frontal engagement, particularly when Hippogriff Knights can be charging in from the rear. That's just an army melted in seconds, especially because Bretonia has healing and Slaanesh does not. But we'll see how that goes. They are moving some infantry out to the flank as well, while Luin takes cover behind the fountain itself. Remember that Seekers did lose their elliptical model buff to an extent. I'm not sure where that puts them in terms of the cavalry ranking at the moment, but they were super busted. They're less so now after the last couple patches. Wrathmongers into melee. They're going to be slicing their way through the Jade Warriors quite quickly, but Sun Dragon and Star Dragon are there to support and expect some big-time Inferno breath attacks from above. It's going to be a unit melted. Star Dragon landing in their midst. Wrathmongers are not going to be enjoying that at all. If they're at full HP and get a surround off on a single entity, they will melt it in seconds, but that's not the case here. Jade Warriors provide a little bit of cushion for the push-in. Halberds overlapping as well, so give and take on both sides and some good engagements. Star Dragon will probably not stick in melee around there for too long, but with the Halberds moving in, I mean, they are getting focus fire down hard by all these archers from the Wood Elves. They're already past half HP and not looking very healthy. Slaanesh, meanwhile, on the outskirts of this engagement, will be looking to Phantasmagoria or Pavane of Slaanesh some of these elite cavalry units of Bretonia out of position, and that is when the Seekers and Heartseekers can strike and Nakari can deal that killing blow. They have isolated a cavalry unit out here, but Companions of Quenelle are coming over to reinforce. Nakari and the rest of the cavalry are moving in. Looks like some Seekers have already melted and are going back to the realm of the Dark Prince. And yeah, oh, this is nasty. Bretonia is definitely getting a clear advantage in these opening stages. Phantasmagoria, a little bit too late there. Doesn't happen too often for Nakari. He's incredibly fast, but the cast wasn't able to stop the charge bonus there. Now the Companions of Quenelle can grind it out in melee. That looks pretty good for the Britons at the moment. Tzeentch getting some good focus fire over the top. Pink Horrors and Blue Horrors sending some deadly balls of cotton candy into the midst of the Forces of Order. Scarbrand in the foreground. You know what he's here for. He's here for that rip and tear like the Doomslayer, soaking it all in, moisturized by blood, unbothered in his lane, thriving with this home court advantage. And Colin Luis Suarez, he's kicking balls and nibbling shoulders without their consents. Get him cycling into the flanks and rear of those Celestial Dragon Guard and Cathayan infantry with the Tzeentch Eldritch Fire in support. Should be able to break through on that side in no time at all. Nakari is in the midst of a whole suite of Bretonian elite cavalry who just stomped that cav fight over on this side. That is relatively bad news for Slaanesh in these opening stages anyway. They still have some units remaining, of course, but yeah, their cavalry did not have a good time fighting Bretonia at all. The Phantasmagorias and Profanes of Slaanesh did not come in time. And in the center, Flaming Sword of Ruin. Cascading Fire Cloak, all kinds of buffs sustained to the Dragon Emperor. On Gold Chevron Sword Masters of Hoath, who have 81 melee defense. That is very nasty. Gonna be hard to cut through them for sure without focus fire. And I think the artillery is currently still on the Glade Guard. Kairos Fateweaver and Tzeentch moving out to the flank to replace Slaanesh and what was lost on that side. King Luan Leon Kerr, full surround on Hellstriders. They're going to die and have done a frankly amazing job of keeping the back of this Order army safe and protected. Nothing has really been tied down in terms of the range play, at least on this side of the battlefield, because Bretonia has been doing their job so well. And what it means is stuff like the Changebringers are getting absolutely mowed down by Glade Guard focus fire. Now, I don't know why they aren't shooting at the moment, because you can clearly see they have an attack order and there's nothing blocking their line of sight. But they're going to die before they get a single shot off. They're just completely gone. They're evaporated. That's a big loss. That's a very expensive, very important unit that in a late game scenario could pretty much melt a single entity like a dragon while it's tied down in CQB. So that's painful for sure. Meanwhile, Nurgle's range troops, the Soul Grinder and Kugath, are each over 200 kills and have over 1,500 value. So they've been putting in serious work, as has Scarbrand, up to 150 kills, well over 3,000 value already, and basically single-handedly fighting a bunch of the most important champions on the Order side. Sun Dragon, Star Dragon are moving in to deal with the Toad Dragon on this side, which isn't really a dragon. It's more like a big, freakish, phlegmy beastie. Omen of Azurian dropping a fire tornado in and amidst the Slaughter Guard, the Khorne chosen halberds from Omens of Destruction, and the Toad Dragon about to put in some serious work on the choreography side. Look at that, whipping and nay-naying a poor Swordmaster back and forth, taking him for a brutal ride. But now he will be the focus of the wrath of the Sun Dragon, the Star Dragon, and the Glade Guard. Because now that he's in melee, he is a fat target, and he is impossible to miss with all these armor-piercing volleys. The Deepwood Scouts, the Way Watchers, basically all the Wood Elf skirmishers over on this side of the battlefield will want to take him down. Star Dragon in there amidst the chosen halberds as well, and it looks like a big problem for the Toad Dragon, who is pretty much immediately down to half HP and must flee. Soul Grinder has fired all of its ammunition, which is usually a very good sign, and indeed he is up over 250 kills into melee, where he's fine, but nothing truly spectacular. And a big Eldritch Storm of bombardment coming in from Kairos Fateweaver, the army ability for Tzeentch. Hippogriff Knights getting super cinematic flying in front of that. Let's get another look at that one. That looks amazing. Yeah, it's a big bombardment here. There's a lot of infantry. Nothing really expensive on the Order side there, but the Jade Warriors, the Peasant Spearmen, these are still units you need to break if you want to break down this box and get into the juicy center and kill off all the skirmisher play. So very important bombardment regardless, and Hippogriff Knights with a regrowth tossed on them to try to keep them in the fight. They have many of their models remaining, but they're really low in health. And speaking of that, Toad Dragon is all the way out of combat now, and he'll need a Fleshy Abundance tossed his way. Phantasmagoria from Nakari for the leadership penalty. He's going to start feasting on fear on the Order left flank, while the Star Dragon and Sun Dragon look on and cannot help. They'll be frozen in place for at least a couple of seconds here. Oh no, the other Changebringers tied down by Royal Hippogriff Knights, who have 7 out of 12 models remaining, and King Luan Leon Kerr on Bakis. Yeah, the Bretonia has put in some serious work in this battle so far, and I'd say it's why Order has an advantage at the moment. Balance bar is a little bit in their favor. Chaos is far from out of it right now, but they definitely have to do something to turn the tides. Toad Dragon, big breath attack in the center there. Nakari with a Harmonic Convergence tossed his way from Kairos Fateweaver, still causing all kinds of havoc there. Orion, Flaming Sword of Ruin, Cascading Fire Cloak, and a whole suite of other buffs activated on him as the melee grind continues in earnest. And Scarbrand, moving behind the Blood Fountain, probably wants to take a little shower. Literally has higher value than any other unit on the field. Home court advantage has been very nice to him, and he's looking for a Fleshy Abundance from Kugath Plaguefather, who will probably toss it his way momentarily. The Plague Toads are feasting. Fecundity is spreading healing all throughout the Chaos army on the Chaos left flank, and Earthblood from the Branch Wraith on the Wood Elf side being tossed on the other side of the battlefield. Big Sword of Khorne. Ooh, that was juicy. Maybe would have been good to wait one more moment for those Bretonian spearmen to enter melee combat, but still pretty solid. Must have killed 100, 150 easy. And the focus fire from those Eldritch energies looks like it should chase off the Star Dragon and Sun Dragon, at least temporarily, while Scarbrand gets that juicy, fleshy abundance. And that's pretty nasty. Khorne doesn't typically have healing outside of Blood Greed. That's going to be really good to toss a massive single entity heal his way, especially with all the work he's been doing in those duels and clearing out the infantry. Toad Dragon with another breath attack, sending buboes, phlegm, blood, and guts, boils, bogies, rots, and pus towards those Grail Knights. Celestial Dragon Guard moving through the choke point and onto the high ground, while the Plague Bearers continue their inexorable advance, chanting 1-2, 1-2. Their vorpal blades went snicker snack and left them dead, and with their heads came galumphing back. We got N'Kari, who is the only Slaaneshi troop choice remaining, I think, outside some Marauder cultists. Yeah, Slaanesh, I'm gonna be honest, Slaanesh got their ass kicked this battle. They had a real rough go of it. It happens. Bretonnia is always gonna be challenging to fight in a pure cav fight. Another Elder Storm coming in from Tzeentch. But yeah, it looks like a couple Marauder cavalry and just N'Kari with a sliver of HP remaining. That's all that's left on the Dark Prince's side. Balance is definitely in favor of the forces of order. Kugath is healthy. He is just absolutely bombarded the Wood Elf skirmish component this game. But I think the Wood Elves will still put in some serious damage in terms of their focus fire of single entities and other important targets. Toad Dragon still rampaging, and there was Celestial Dragon Guard and Grail Knights, which is not typically where a large single entity monster wants to be, so he'll push through and instead charge down the flank of those Sword Masters and High Elf troops. A lot of routing on this side for the forces of order. If Nurgle, with this Toad Dragon, Plague Bearers, and Vile Trolls can push through, they might be able to collapse in and pincer the rest of the forces of order. But there's still the single entities they have to worry about, and I think the Sun Dragon and the Star Dragon are probably some of the biggest things that they need to deal with. Tyrion is still full HP as well, and I do not believe his Heart of Avalorn has procced, so that's a lot of powerful single entity duelists that they have to worry about. I really love that animation. I have never seen the cav kill animation for the Toad Dragon, though. I think it's the only sync kill animation in the series that works against cavalry. Still haven't seen it, would love to. King Lewin is doing exactly what the Toad Dragon was doing on the other side of the battlefield, and it has finally fallen in battle against the Sword Masters and the Celestial Dragon Guard. N'Kari surrounded by Royal Hippogriff Knights. This may yet be his end. He's crumbling. Oh no, the Hippogriff Knights have the full surround off. 4 models remaining. They're breaking after the charge from the Marauder Cav. Oh my god, only one will manage to escape that fight. And N'Kari lives and doesn't crumble out. He has 179 HP. He was crumbling, but somehow managed to stay after killing a few of their models. He did not break. He did not get sent back to the Dark Prince's realm. That could change things here. 179 HP on N'Kari means potentially 1 or 2 rear attacks from 600 weapon strength. That could be a game changer, potentially. Scarbrand still going at it with King Lewin, Leon Kerr. Kairos could come help, but not really a great duelist. Some of the worst melee attacks amongst the greater demons. And we saw Orion chasing Kugath Plaguefather atop his palanquin throne. Kugath doesn't want that smoke, boss. He's going to run away. All right. Star Dragon is making his way over. I think they realize that Scarbrand and Kugath are the main threats now. It looks like they are gaining a commanding advantage. Chaos might be on their last legs here. The combination of the Bretonian cavalry and the Wood Elf skirmish play has really rent this Chaos army asunder, and the 4 greater demons are in danger of losing in the realms of their own home. And this is an awesome Smash Bros. Free-for-all. We got Miao Ying, Orion King in the Woods, King Lewin Leon Kerr, Kugath Plaguefather, Kairos Fateweaver, and Scarbrand the Exiled One, all going at it as the Omen of Azurian comes in too. And Scarbrand sent back. Oh, the Blood God will not be happy with that one. He was awesome, and we're going to see his damage value at the end of the game. I don't want to spoil it yet, but he was amazing. He did so much work for Chaos here, but he is gone. Kugath is crumbling out now. Kairos is going to disappear momentarily. That's going to be the game. All 3 greater demons killed in a handful of seconds. That's pretty much your battle in the gladiatorial arena. The Hunter of Souls. The forces of order went into their home turf and took it to the Chaos Gods and won. incredible performance from them, really impressive. And the Wood Elves and Bretonia, I think, are going to be your co-MVPs. But let's take a look at the post-game stats. So, I was playing as the Poxmakers of Nurgle. Kugath, Plaguefather, and the Soul Grinder were amazing. Rest of my units, not that fantastic, honestly. Toe Dragon, I wanted to put in some serious work, but it wasn't really able to. There were enough Wood Elf skirmishers remaining after I used most of or all of my ammo that they were able to focus fire him down, and the Halberds and the single entities, the Star Dragon, the Azurian Phoenix, and the Sun Dragon were too much for him to deal with. Scarbrand had 7,000 value, which was the highest of any unit on this battlefield. He did some really impressive dueling against the single entities of the Order side. Orion got in 3,000 value himself, nothing to scoff at. But take a look at some of these Glade Guard, man. Like 2,500 value on some of them, and the Deepwood Scouts and the Way Watchers. That is kind of insane, and this is why I don't actually love giving Wood Elves or Skaven or Vampire Coast the range component, because when you mass that many skirmishers together that have AP, like Starfire Shafts and Way Watchers and stuff, they can just basically go down the line and go, oh yeah, that single entity, dead. That single entity, dead. And you don't really have easy tools to shut down that play when there's that many ranged troops on the field. So yeah, they were brutal. Wood Elves did so much work this game. But a lot of that, of course, was down to Bretonia just convincingly winning that Cav fight. Tzeentch had a hard time. They don't quite have that focus fire potential at long range that the Wood Elves do. Flamers, for instance, can melt a single entity, but they need to be close. And Starfire Shafts and other things will be able to out-skirmish them pretty easily. So the important thing for Chaos in this game was winning the Cav fight. And I think that's difficult for Slaanesh to do against Bretonia, especially in the capable hands of someone like Inkars from XMT, who's a very good player. Winning that Cav fight convincingly against Bretonia, gonna be a tall order, but really enjoyed that game. Hope y'all did too, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.